Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, guys. Alhamdulillah. As you guys know, my name is Liaquat Zaman. And if you don't know that by now, then you guys need to subscribe to my channel. So, alhamdulillah. Social media is a very good and a very bad thing at the same time as well. A lot of people through social media can reach out to people they couldn't reach out to before. But at the same time, many people misuse social media, and I'm going to say social media, and start to, misuse it, and are very immature in how they use it as well. So a lot of the things that they would never do in real life, they begin to do on their social media, and it basically results in people fighting each other, arguing with each other, slandering each other, and like the Prophet ﷺ said that sometimes a person might say something and it leads them to the depths of Jahannam without them even realizing what they've said. So we've got to be very careful about our words that we use, what we write. Sometimes we don't even intend what we write. We don't even intend it, but we word it in such a way that it offends lots of people as well. So we've got to be careful of how we say things on such platforms as well, right? We always should question ourselves as well. Should I be saying this? Should I not be saying this? And if you think about it, a lot of people use social media. People who are intelligent, people who are academic, people who are pious, people who are the opposite as well of everything I've just said. But at the same time, there has to be etiquette, rules, and slowly I think we're going to learn how to use social media, because it's a new phenomenon. It's only been, you can say about a decade or so. But the thing is something that we have to really kind of become more acute or more conscious of how we say things to other people as well. So keeping that in mind, especially with things that happen, maybe there's some football match going on, some cricket match going on, or maybe something's happened to some celebrity, or maybe anything that happens, we have to be careful. We don't have to comment on everything that happens. Remember that. If you don't like someone on social media, there's a very easy solution, and I'll tell you that solution here. Just delete them. Simple as that. Unfriend them. That's what I do on my Facebook. Sometimes what I do is, if someone puts up loads of posts that just irritate me, I just let them follow me, but I don't follow them, or I put them on snooze for a month. So sometimes what happens is, sometimes months will go by, I don't even know some of the people on my Facebook. They'll be putting up stuff, and maybe they think I see it, but a lot of the time I don't see a lot of the things what some people put up, because I've either snoozed them or I've unfollowed them. They're still following me, but I unfollow them. And so alhamdulillah, it kind of like it gives me a breath of fresh air, and it gives me some good understanding of what I need to put on my Facebook. So I like putting up my own stuff, and or not my own stuff. I like just reading at some people's stuff. Very interesting. And those are posts that are a bit toxic, then I just ignore them. Anyway, so may Allah give us understanding of how to use social media properly. So I've been very, very tired. I had a very long busy day yesterday. I probably got home about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So and in the morning time I've been doing some work as well. So I've been very busy. So that's why I look a bit tired as well, a bit drained. Anyway, let's answer your questions then. So I'm going to answer first of all Curious Cat questions, and then I'm going to be answering any questions you guys want to put up on the side. I'll try to answer those as well. So let's check out the questions then. Alright. Okay, so the questions should be from the last time. Okay. Alright, so was it from if we made a mistake in Salah and forgotten to the Sahu at the end, will we have to repeat the Salah? Was it from there? Yeah, I think it's from there. Alright, so first question is, if we made a mistake in Salah and forgotten to do Sajda Sahu at the end, will we still have to repeat the Salah? So yes. Yeah, if you forgot to make Sajda Sahu and you still have time left for that Salat. So let's say, for example, you made a mistake in Dhuhr, you forgot to do Sajda Sahu, and there's still time left for Zuhr, then you'll have to repeat the Salat again. And if the time finishes, then you don't have to repeat it again. Okay, next. I'm not quite sure regarding the rules of when we can break our Salah. Can you please explain them? For instance, if someone sees their baby crying and there's no one else to pick them up, is it okay to break your Salah? Yes. If anything, basically, you can break your Salat if there is any sort of danger to anyone's life, or something is going to cause some harm. So you can break your Salat for that. Who is Zakat obligatory upon? It won't be sinful to break your Salat in that situation. Yes, if a person breaks their Salat for no reason, that's something that's going to be sinful. Who is Zakat obligatory upon? I am a student that receives bursaries every term. Is it obligatory for me? So Zakat is obligatory upon a person who has below the nisab. So if you have below the nisab threshold, so after you minus all your liabilities, if you have around about 200 and I think it's about 225 pounds. If you're about 225 pounds, you got to give zakat. Yeah. So if you have less than that, you don't have to give zakat. So that's after all your liabilities, that is. And you can check out my YouTube video. I made a crash course on zakat. Salam Mufti, what's the reason for witr being wajib according to most Hanafis? Okay, that's the first question. The reason is because there's quite a few dalils for this. I mean, there's a narration that say witr is necessary. Witr is haqq. فَمَنْ لَمْ يُوتِرْ فَلَيْسَ مِنَّا. Whoever doesn't do witr, they're not from amongst us. The second one is that all the Sahaba is recorded from them that if they missed their witr at night time, they would do qada of it at fajr. So doing qada of a salat shows that it is considered to be necessary. And many of the Sahaba would actually on a journey pray their witr as well. So these kind of evidences show that witr was very important. So that's why we say it's not fard, but it's more than sunnah. Yeah, it's wajib, necessary. How do these scholars understand the hadith merely restricting the 5 salat as being obligatory? Yeah, so the 5 salat being obligatory means that 5 times in the day you have to worship Allah. 5 salats itself, so the wajibat and the sunnahs are part of the 5 salats. Yeah, so you have there what is known as the tabi'. So the original is like, for example, Fajr is the original salat, but the sunnahs you pray with, they are a tabi' of it. Yeah, like a follow-on to it. So this is why those are most important, and then those ones. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't just pray 2 rakats of Fajr. He prayed sunnahs as well, regularly. He didn't just pray 4 rakats of Dhuhr. He prayed 4 sunnahs, 2 sunnahs, yeah, like that. So he always prayed this. So this shows that the Prophet ﷺ, he was very, very regular in these things. So if these things were not part of the salats, the 5 times salats, if they were not part of it, then he wouldn't be praying them. But because he prayed them, that shows that they have some significance and relationship with the 5 times salat. Yes, they're not as fard, the highest level, as the 5 times salat, but they are considered to be something which are, complementary to the salats. So when we say 5 times salat, like there's many things in Islam that we say are necessary, but we don't mention the small details, even though we know that they're necessary as well. So for example, a person might say, praying salat is necessary, but also facing Qibla is necessary, also doing wudu is necessary, also all these other things are necessary, right? And all those things that are mentioned as being necessary means that these things are complementary of those. Okay, number 2, to obligate an additional salah daily, would there not need to be strong evidence? Yeah, there is strong evidence, that's what I said to you. Strong evidence. So the Hanafis say we can't call something fard because the evidence has to be categorical. But if the evidence is as close to fard, then we can call it wajib. Right? So the Hanafis have a level known as wajib, which is just below fard. Yeah, so other madhabs don't have this. The Hanafis say that certain things in Islam are categorical, absolutely. If you deny them, you're out of Islam. Certain things are just slightly below that, right? And then you have the Sunnah Mu'akkadas, right? The things the Prophet ﷺ did very regularly. So there are certain things which are absolutely core part of Islam, and then there are certain things the Prophet ﷺ he done regularly and he missed it out sometimes. But then in between the two levels, there's something which is known as the wajib. What I would suggest is, the person asking this question, you need to study usul fiqh. If you study usul fiqh, all these things get cleared up, right? Because a lot of people, what happens is, it becomes very difficult to kind of see the big construct of Islam when you only have a few pieces of information being given to you. And it's once you study usul fiqh, a lot of these things get cleared up. Would the emphasis required from hadith as opposed to Kufan practice, since the Sahibain opined that witr is sunnah? Not necessarily. Like we said, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says that this was something which was prayed in such a manner. So I understand the response would be lengthy, but hopefully if you have time, in next question QnA. Yeah, so these kind of things, like I said, require understanding Hanafi usul fiqh, how Hanafi usul fiqh works, and how Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah used to approach certain masail. Okay, so hope that answers it. Okay, you were asked about the issue of music in your recent Q&A, and I have a few related questions. Number one, if music besides the daf is impermissible unconditionally, then what is the reason for this? Generally, rulings besides acts of worship have a legal cause highlighted that may be conditional unless stipulated. Otherwise, like the hadith about wearing gold in the hereafter for believers, which shows that it is unconditionally prohibited in this world, or is the legal cause for this impermissibility, if it is indeed impermissible, part of the unseen in this case, which means that its ill effects would only be known through revelation. Okay, right, so this is very long, I don't know which way to start from. So if music besides the daf is impermissible unconditionally, then what is the reason for this? So that's one question. So music is not unconditionally impermissible. No scholar has ever said that, to my knowledge. Music is impermissible if there are certain things associated to it, right? And some of them will say it's the musical instrument that's being played. Some of them say it's the associated bad culture that was existent at the time of the Sahaba, which was dancing women and women singing along with it, and drinking alcohol to it as well. So because of these kind of things, there's a very grey area when it comes to music. So many of the early scholars were against this idea of music because of certain narrations where the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned certain wordings and he did certain things which seemed as though music was wrong. But then later on, people began to look into this issue, and they saw that the Prophet ﷺ wasn't prohibiting all forms of music. There were certain types of music that were being prohibited. So they kind of refined the argument regarding music. So it became things like musical instruments, music that's produced by musical instruments that are string instruments and wind instruments. Those are prohibited. As for others, and others said, like Sheikh Abdul Ghani Nablusi, he says any sort of music which has a bad reason behind the intention, and that has bad things associated to it, that's totally wrong. But if the intention is good, then there's some scope for that. So for instance, like we have on our mobile phones today a ring, which is a musical tone. You go to someone's house, you ring their bell, it's a musical tone. You start your car, you have radio, you have some music in there, advertisements, all these kind of things. Nowadays there's lots of background music that you have. So that's why I'm saying it's a very grey area. Generally what I would say is, a person nowadays music has things in there which the fuqaha were saying, in the past, the things that they were saying. Nowadays they've got stuff in there. If they knew what kind of stuff the music has today, right, and the kind of ill effects that it causes people, then most of the scholars I think in the past would have condemned a lot of it, right? So a lot of the times the early scholars, they prohibit something because of a culture that's been created and a mindset that was there. So this is why if you look at the Prophet ﷺ, him allowing certain types of musical instruments like the daf, and him allowing Anjasha to sing to the camels and saying to them that be careful that the women don't become harmed by the camels jerking around. So this is why this area is a very grey area. One thing, I mean, one of the scholars who has recently, contemporary scholars who has recently written a very balanced sort of approach on this would be Sheikh Hatim al-Awni. So if you check out Sheikh Hatim al-Awni's things, and it looks like this person who's asking the question has a bit of background in fiqh and probably knows Arabic as well. So I would suggest checking that out. I don't think anyone says that it's just Amr Ta'abudi, that it's just something which is the underlying reason for why music is impermissible is unknown. So for those who don't know, it's like sometimes there's certain things in Islam we don't know the underlying ruling. Most things we know the underlying rulings for. Even like things like gold. Yeah, wearing gold in this world, the Hanafis even say that if the gold is not the main purpose, as in the gold, they say that it's because of the tashabbuh bin nisa. This is supposed to be something intrinsically for women as a jewelry. So therefore, if a man was carrying gold in his pocket, there's no problem. If he had like a watch and he had certain pieces inside the watch, parts that were made of gold, that wouldn't be a problem. They even mentioned about a ring having a pin that holds the stone together made of gold. They had no problem with that. And even gold plating and these kind of things, gold teeth. So it's not that the illa is obviously there. Yes. How would Balwa be treated in an issue like music when there are very few sound hadith prohibiting it? And yes, Balwa would definitely have a role to play. Yeah, Balwa. Again, this masala has to be looked at from a historic perspective as well. You have to kind of look at historically how the Muslim societies perceived music in the early years. Nowadays, I mean, many people will just give a blanket statement that all forms of music are impermissible, but then they'll have to explain things like, okay, what about singing nasheeds in a certain tone or having certain background sounds, which if anyone else listens to that, they're going to think, well, this is music. To them, they can't really differentiate between the two. That's what I'm saying. It's a very grey area. It requires a lot of research. I don't think it's the efforts of one person that can really come to some sort of a conclusion on this. It has to be a group of scholars have to come together. They have to do a thorough research of this issue. And it's not just this is not one of those masalas which is madhab restricted. This is a masala which requires scholars from all madhabs to come together to try and understand how this works. Like, it's got nothing to do with salat, wudu, zakat, hajj, these kind of things. The normal abwab chapters of fiqh doesn't really have anything related to that in itself. And like we said, the narrations themselves, this is another issue as well in itself. So this is why this is a very big topic, and I hope that clears some things up. Are the explicit narrations from the founding imams of the schools to show its impermissibility? In an effort to show that it is not unconditionally prohibited according to Imam Abu Hanifa, some bring the narration of him permitting selling instruments. Yes, possibly, yeah. There are some of the books of fiqh, they do actually go into the details of selling musical instruments. Or, for example, you don't really get anything which is explicit from Imam Abu Hanifa, to my knowledge, regarding, yes, you do get certain things where in them societies, when someone would play music, it was automatically associated to a bad culture. Right? It was also automatically associated with bad culture. Like in today's times, you have certain things that people do. And as soon as you say this guy does this or she does this, because of all the bad culture that's associated to that action, most likely that person's involved in that as well. So it discredits that person. So in them days, these kind of things would discredit people. Like, for example, playing games. So playing games in them days was considered to be looked down upon. If you look at the early books of fiqh, they mention categorically about playing games, that is the person who plays them is a fasik, and they even question whether his testimony is going to be accepted in courts or not. So as the time went by, now playing games has actually become an art. It's become a skill. It's become something that people earn money in, people provide for their families, and there's like a lot of other benefits associated, financial benefits or benefits for the community associated to it. Like nowadays, football and all these kind of things that people play. So that's why when you look at these kind of fiqhy statements, you can either look at them and say, right, playing games is always impermissible. But then you can look at it and say, you know what? Or what do the later scholars say about this? So when you look at what the later scholars say, you realize that they understood the context of those masail that Abu Hanifa and Muhammad and Abu Yusuf and others were talking about. And so what happened was eventually the later scholars were able to sift through the masail, peel away all other things and then realize what the scholars were actually talking about. And that if they were here in our days today, what they would have said about playing games. So the same thing, I believe, is the issue with music as well. So there has to be, like I said, a balanced approach to this, a very consistent approach, I believe, and it requires scholars to come together for this. Yes. Jazakumullah khair, Sheikh. May Allah reward you immensely. Ameen. And may Allah reward you as well for this nice question. Good question. Alhamdulillah. Okay, next. Does dry cleaning purify clothes for clothes that have a label saying they can only be dry cleaned? When clothes are dry cleaned, they use a liquid chemical solvent but no water, even though it's called dry cleaning. Okay, so according to Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Abu Yusuf rahimahullah, if you have impurity on a surface and a material, that material, as long as the impurity is uplifted through whatever substance you use, then that material will be classified as being clean. So in this case, and my understanding of dry cleaning is that they use certain types of chemicals, and they use it in such a way that it doesn't damage the cloth, but it removes the impurity from there, or it may render the impurity into something else. So based on that, I would say dry cleaning would be permissible. Right, next. I have a few questions about purification. How should we wipe surfaces, e.g. desks and sinks, etc.? If I dampen 3 times the tissue with water and spray okay, if a surface is non-porous surface, if it's like a desk or something, all you have to do is get a wet wipe and wipe it over. One wipe would suffice. Sahaba would wipe their swords and they would consider it to be clean from blood. So anything which is non-porous, it requires a wipe. Anything which is porous can absorb, right? The Hanafis say that if it absorbs it and it dries and you can scrape it off, then you can remove it. But if it's like a material like cotton or polyester or something like that, which absorbs and it holds it in, then you require using some sort of a liquidy substance to try and uplift the impurity. Can we use antibacterial wipes? Yes, according to Abu Hanifa Muhammad, you can use those. Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf. Also, if a cloth is dampened with water, antibacterial spray is used when or wiping impurities everywhere the cloth. Does this matter? Yes, it is. Very easy. I mean, some people, will be confused about this, but generally, according to Imam Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf, they are lenient when it comes to cleaning surfaces. Yeah, so as long as the impurity has gone, one wipe suffices. Okay. From a purely fiqh point of view, would it be permissible for a couple to mutually agree to not have sexual relations with each other, but to continue to live together for the sake of their children? Yes, totally permissible. If they both want to waiver their rights, any rights in your marriage, you're allowed to waiver. That rights related to you, so your rights that you have, you can waiver them. Totally fine, you can do that. Would that only apply to area? Okay, so this is a previous question, so let's go to see what the previous question was. A question about women going to the masjid. When a woman is on a menses, is it okay for them to walk around the masjid? No, they wouldn't be allowed to go into the masjid. Okay. Would that only apply to areas? Yeah, so this only applies to areas which are known as masjid. Yeah, meaning only apply to areas which are basically decided by the trustees of the masjid, the people who are in charge of the masjid. The area that they have designated to be the masjid area, or we call a shar'i masjid, masjid shar'i. Yeah, so the area where prayer takes place and i'tikaf can be done. Everywhere else in that building is not called masjid legally. Yeah, the whole rest of the building is just a normal building. So in a normal building, a mosque building, you can walk around anywhere as long as you don't walk around in the area where it's been designated as a prayer area and an i'tikaf area. That's it. Okay, I have a question. I have noticed that a lot of times when I am with my friends or relatives from Pakistan, I have become very strict or pretend to be strict when it comes to parda, meaning covering up, and I just automatically become a bit more relaxed when I'm around friends from here. Not relaxed in the sense, astaghfirullah, doing something haram, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect me from that, but in the sense that there's such a wide spectrum of opinions of scholars regarding these issues, I tend to just move from one spectrum to another depending on who I'm with. Lately I've started feeling like a hypocrite when I do that, and it's upsetting me. If I put up a picture which I think is okay, I keep on thinking, what would they say about it? I've never cared a jot about what others say before, so I'm just getting a little worried why I'm thinking this now. So which part is the question? I don't understand. I don't know, is that like a comment or something, or is there a question coming up? So is the question? I mean, I don't. I think what this person's asking, this lady's asking, is that is this okay for me to do, right? Um, um, is that if that's the thing, is it okay for me to do that? I am quite strict when it comes to when I'm sitting with certain communities. I'm quite strict with my covering up, and then when I'm sitting with other people, I'm a bit laxed in that. The thing is, I mean, this is the kind of question I would say it's best for a woman to answer this kind of question. The reason is because I don't really know exactly what kind of pressures women go through, and it's very easy for me to say to answer this question and say, look, you should be consistent in your covering up. You know, if you cover up in front of others in a certain way, you should be. I would say that the best person to answer this kind of question would be a female who is a scholar and who understands the women's issues and can give an answer which is balanced, a good answer. Because we have situations here where, you know, women are living in different backgrounds, environments, with families. Certain families are not practicing. Certain families expect more from those women than other families, and so there's a lot of things, you know, secondary things you can say, which I might not perceive, but are very important to be perceived when answering such questions. Generally, I would just, as a general kind of, a rule of the thumb, I would say this: look, sometimes in Islam you have to do certain things deliberately. Sometimes in Islam you have to do certain things deliberately as a precautionary measure, even though normally you don't do those kind of things in front of others. And the Prophet ﷺ, he actually said, "Ittaqu mawadi'atuhum," stay away from those things which are potentially accusing situations. So, you know, maybe around certain people, let's say, for example, like, I mean, I'm like this as well. So, for example, maybe there might be a certain shop, it's an off license, let's say, and I deliberately will not go to that off license, even though I'm not going to go to buy anything haram. I might just go there just to buy some chewing gum or maybe some crisps or, you know, some water or something. But I deliberately won't go there because I know that if I go there, people look up to me, and sometimes I don't even realize that. And then it kind of desensitizes certain things when people see me doing it. So I have to be slightly extra precautious in certain places and when I'm saying certain things. Like, for example, when I'm on live stream and when I'm, in my lessons, obviously the way I speak is different. Maybe if you know me very well, you know me differently, right? I can be more relaxed. I can speak more, like normal. And when I'm on in public view, I have to be a bit more precautious. I have to be more careful the way I word myself, the way I present myself, even the kind of attire I wear. I have to be very careful. And the reason is because all sorts of people are watching, all sorts of people are interacting, and you don't want to kind of give the wrong message to people, right? Some people may become shocked. Maybe some things I say normally with my friends, some will get shocked because they're not used to that kind. It's a very difficult thing to take in. So sometimes you got to be like this. Yeah. So what I would say is that yes, if you're in a situation where you normally are modest in your clothing, you cover up the places that you're supposed to cover up, but in front of some other people you're a bit more reserved, you're a bit more strict, you can say maybe precautious, then alhamdulillah, I think that's a good thing to do. Yeah, and that's not hypocritical at all. The Prophet ﷺ, he was like that as well. From in front of some Sahaba, he was relaxed, but in front of some other Sahaba, he was very, his attitude would change, character would change, especially like in front of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Subhanallah, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu comes into the garden and he's just relaxing there. Umar comes in, he's relaxing. Uthman comes, he quickly fixes his clothing, and then someone asks him, when Uthman came, how come he done this? So the Prophet said that even the angels are shy of Uthman. Even the angels are shy of Uthman. Yeah, so this is like a high status for Uthman radiallahu anhu. But we as Muslims have to be, I would say, people that have to realize other people are watching us sometimes, and other people take from us lessons we don't even realize. Especially, for example, for me, because I've got a YouTube channel, because I teach, a lot of people have high expectations of me, and so I have to keep up those expectations for the benefit of many of the viewers as well. So alhamdulillah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I don't have really many issues with that. But yeah, so sometimes someone might see me going for badminton, and I mean, when I play badminton, I put like a ponytail in my hair because my hair is quite long. So my hair goes over the place and it goes in my eyes, so I can't, I sweat from my hair, goes in my face, and this is crazy. So I have to put a ponytail, one of those, what do you call them? I forgot what they're called. The men kind of have. So sometimes someone might see me and I'm like coming back from badminton and I have it in my hair, I forgot taking it out. I've still got it. And they might see me and like, I give Jummah in the mosque, their mosque. They might think, oh, what's this? This guy is walking around with like a ponytail in his hair and this isn't what we were expecting of him. So yeah, so in front of certain people, you should behave in a certain way. Alhamdulillah. It's good, it's mannerism as well. Okay, also in response to women entering masjids during menses, can you please explain why? Yes. The reason for this is because of narrations. The Quran as well mentions about people who are in a state of major impurity are not allowed to enter the masjids. Yeah. وَلَا جُنُبٌ إِلَّا عَابِدِ السَّبِيلِ, except for a traveller. And that is being interpreted like by the Shafis as if you're just passing through the masjid, like the masjid is between two roads and the only way to get to the other road is to pass through, then in that situation you're allowed to just use that as a road to pass through. But the Hanafi say no, you're not allowed to. This is just saying that if you're a traveller, then the traveller's situation is slightly different, so the ruling is slightly relaxed, so therefore he can do tayammum or other things to go to the masjid. So that's that. And there's many narrations as well of Sahaba have mentioned regarding impermissibility of entering into the masjid for a person who's in major ritual impurity and a person who's in menstruation. Like the four madhabs are, you can say, unanimous about this, about the person a woman menstruating entering a masjid. And the thing was, it wasn't considered to be something that was a normal thing in them days, because generally women wouldn't go to the masjids. It wasn't like a normal thing, even in the time of Sahaba, not many women used to go to the masjid. Some women used to go to the masjid, but the Prophet ﷺ would encourage them to pray at home anyway. So, those who wanted to come to the masjid, the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't stop them. He allowed them to come. But they weren't encouraged. That's why they don't go for Jummah. They don't have to go for Jummahs. They don't have to go for other 5 times prayer. It's not considered to be necessary. But in this society now, because the mindset has become for many people that they want to go to the masjid, or maybe they might go to Masjid al-Aqsa, they might go to Masjid al-Haram, Makkah, Medina. So they want to know these rulings. So I think it's a good thing you want to know these rulings. Wa alaikum assalam. You did post Ramadan Q&A 3 days ago, but didn't manage to answer all the questions. When will the next one be? Well, the next one is today. 16th of June, Sunday. I was reading in a book that it is prohibited for both men and women to eat or drink using silver or gold utensils, as it is a manifestation of extravagance and arrogance. I was just wondering that with these manifestations can take different forms. Can scholars make some of those haram, especially if they become widespread inside? Yes, possibly. I mean, anything which is arrogance, sign of arrogance, the Prophet ﷺ in his days would say, like for example, if a person in them days would have their trousers dragging below their ankles. So the Prophet ﷺ, he actually banned this. He said anyone who drags their trousers below their ankles out of arrogance, is going to enter the fire. So this was because that was a trend in them days. An arrogant trend was for you to drag your trousers. Like nowadays, I would say things like people who deliberately have their trousers maybe below their backsides, and they kind of just do it because they're showing off onto other people. If they're not showing off, if it's just like a normal sort of like fashion thing, that's different. But if they're doing it deliberately just to, show that they're better than everyone else, or maybe they have their car and they, deliberately, rev their car just to show that they're better than the other person, or these kind of things. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say that these things would also be impermissible as well. So arrogance manifests itself in many ways nowadays, right? And people don't realize it. So the main thing is, if anything in your life that you're doing it because you want to prove to someone else that you're superior to them, that's arrogance. That's not allowed. Anything. Just think about it yourself. Maybe there might be a lady who's got a handbag and she just deliberately wants to show the designer name of that handbag to others just to show that she's got more money than them, or she's better than them. Or maybe there might be a guy who deliberately got a mobile phone just to show that he's better than them. Yeah, so these kind of arrogance, manifestations of arrogance are prohibited. May Allah save us. Okay, connects. When I was studying in a madrasa, we were told that you shouldn't stand up for anyone because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade that, and if we stood up for our teachers, we were told off severely. I used to find that very confusing because in our culture, from a very young age, we were taught to stand up for our elders or guests as soon as they walked into the room as a sign of respect, and it was considered arrogance and showing extreme disrespect to not do so. How do we reconcile what Rasulullah said to the culture practice of standing up? Okay, so this is a good question. The thing to remember about this is that when we look at narration of the Prophet ﷺ, and we haven't studied a good level of Islamic sciences like usul and fiqh, what basically happens is we see one narration, we believe that that one narration dictates everything in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So the 23 years of his life, we believe this one narration was like the slogan of his life. And then we think that is like the most categorical thing, and anyone who goes against this is a sinner, or close to the border of Islam, which is a big problem, right? So what is actually standing up? If you think about it, standing up itself it depends on which society you're living in, right? So I remember when I was studying in madrasa, different people had different understanding of standing up. A lot of the Pakistani local people, they would stand up for their teacher. So if like they were sitting down and teacher walked by, they would stand up out of respect. If you go to, for example, like some parts of the world, right, they won't stand up for the teacher. Like especially like certain places in northern villages in Pakistan, they don't stand up. They chill out. The teacher's walking, the teacher's relaxed, and they're relaxed, and they don't stand up for each other. So they didn't have that practice of standing up. So what basically you have is when you have a clash of cultures, and some cultures see standing up as being important, and other cultures don't see it as being important. And then you see some narrations, you get confused that did the Prophet ﷺ not allow any Sahabi in his entire life to stand up for him? Yeah, you have certain occasions, and you actually have certain occasions where the Prophet ﷺ, he would tell other Sahaba to stand up. Like for example, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, famous narration that you have, where he was coming on a donkey to Banu Qurayza to resolve the dispute. And he said to the Prophet said to the Ansar, stand up, qumu ila sayyidikum, go on, get up for your Sayyid. So some say, oh no, he actually meant, what he meant there was because Sa'd Mu'adh was injured. So that's why they were saying get up and help him. Others saying no, he was actually saying stand up because he's your leader, you should stand up for him. And we see, standing up being seen as a sign of respect as well. Prophet ﷺ would stand up for his daughter Fatima when she'd enter the room. So when Fatima would come to his house, the Prophet's house, the Prophet ﷺ would actually stand up and kiss on the head. So it was that kind of, the Prophet ﷺ didn't want the standing up that was practiced by other cultures that were like seen as religious. Religious standing up was condemned by the Prophet ﷺ. So he was saying like, he didn't want people to stand up like the Ajim. He said, don't stand up for me like the non-Arabs stand up for their leaders, like religiously. Right? But out of respect, this is why the later scholars have said, out of respect, standing up for your teachers is permissible. Nothing wrong with it. Even things like kissing your teacher's hand, kissing your teacher's forehead, these kind of things, it's all based upon your society. So we don't have to imitate these things. We don't have to imitate our Arab culture into our lives. We don't have to do that. But we've got to be very careful of how much we implement, how we understand our cultures. If you go to the army today, standing up and saluting is a sign of respect, but they don't do it religiously. They do it just to show an order of hierarchy. So I hope that answers the question. I mean, I stand up for my teachers, right? Most of my teachers didn't have an issue with standing up. And this is why the scholars say that the standing up that is prohibited is also that standing up where the person wants you to stand up for them. Like they have an element of like sort of arrogance, you can say, attention seeking. That is the kind of thing which the Prophet ﷺ didn't want. So in that case, our teachers say to us sometimes, don't stand up for me. And we wouldn't stand up. But some teachers, we would stand up and they wouldn't say anything to us. They would just carry on. So, I don't mind if my students stand up for me. They don't stand up. I have no qualms with them. Okay, another question. Another thing I'm confused about is that we were taught that there's no difference in the way men and women pray, the way they stand up and do sajda, etc. Because Rasulullah said, pray as you have seen me pray. And we were told that when Hanafis say women should stand differently, Okay, so again, this is another, I would say, misunderstanding of hadith. Again, those who haven't studied hadith, they don't know contextualization of hadith. That's a very important skill that you learn when you're studying hadith from experts and when you're studying usul. So, for example, like the Prophet said, pray as you have seen me pray. Now, did he mean by this, pray as you have seen me pray in exactly the same location, exactly the same time, wearing exactly the same clothes, everything exactly the same? Or was it like the main kind of things that I've shown you, pray like that? So, what basically happens is, in this situation, is that the Prophet ﷺ, he was teaching the Sahaba, telling them, the main things that you saw me do, right? Pray like me. That's how you pray. So if we look, we can find some Sahaba, they prayed in slightly different ways. Some Sahaba say we had our hands below, we had our hands above, we raised our hands once, we used to raise our hands before ruku, after ruku, before sajda, after sajda. So does that mean that the Prophet ﷺ prayed in multiple ways? Yes, maybe he did. Maybe he prayed in multiple ways. This hadith that the Prophet ﷺ pray as you have seen me pray does not necessarily mean that a woman prays exactly in the same manner that the Prophet ﷺ prayed, as in, like, even the attire that he wore, right? We all agree that it's not the case. In fact, we know the Prophet ﷺ actually had slightly different rules for women. So, for example, like the Prophet ﷺ would say that when a woman prays, she can only show her face and her hands. And we also know the Prophet ﷺ told the women to stand at the back. So if you take this hadith and you say that pray as you have seen me pray, then shouldn't it be that the women should stand next to men? Or even women should lead the salat? Because that's how the Prophet ﷺ prayed. So this is why we know the hadith, we don't take it for literally. We don't take it exactly as it. We look at the hadith in the context of other narrations of how Sahaba did things, how they practiced. And so if we know how they practiced, we know what they understood from this hadith. So this is why, if you look at the four madhabs, all four madhabs, when they describe the woman's prayer, they mention slight variations, differences in the woman's prayer. Very slight. Some of them will mention, like the Hanafis, they have like some say there's about 9 things and some say up to 23 things, slightly variations in a woman's salat from a man's salat. Things like where to place the hands, what is more modest for a woman to place the hands. None of the Hanafis say that if a woman was to pray exactly the same way as a man, none of the Hanafis say that her salat will not be accepted. They all actually say her salat will be fine, it'll be done. But what is best for her, how she stands. And we have narrations which some people may argue that they're weak, whatever. That's not an issue with the Hanafi madhab, because the Hanafi madhab does not work on the usul of hadith. They have their own set of usul which actually predates the compilation of hadith. And maybe I'm going to do a series maybe in the future on usul hadith, which is actually going to cover how hadith developed and how people understood hadith and all sorts of things, inshallah. So that's basically something we have to understand. So yes, in the four madhabs, if you read the four madhabs, you will actually in fact see from the books of the four madhabs that there were clear differences that the scholars would encourage between men and women. And we know the Prophet ﷺ said, he cursed those men who imitate women and he cursed those women who imitate men. We know that. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Not sure if this was asked before, but are you Ash'ari or Maturidi? Okay, so let me explain this. Anyone who asks me this question, what are your beliefs? What I always tell them is this. I say the same beliefs that Allah was happy with the Sahaba are my beliefs. So I am happy to believe in anything that the Sahaba would believe in. I am happy to believe that this is belief of salvation. Right? And the simple reason for this is because the Quran was revealed to the Sahaba, and Allah says in the Quran to the people, if you believe in how the people believe, in how the Sahaba believed, then you are on guidance. فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. So this is why I and my teachers will always say this as well, that your beliefs will always be in accordance, will always be measured with the Sahaba beliefs, the beliefs that were revealed to the Sahaba. Whatever the Sahaba died upon, whatever they believed, if you believe that, then you go Jannah. Yeah? Or you're successful rather. And so if a person says that you have to believe other things, you have to believe in other things that the Sahaba did not believe in, I would say that this is not fair. right? Because this doesn't seem to be consistent with the way, all Muslims are the same. Besides the Prophet ﷺ, he was a messenger of Allah. All other Muslims are exactly the same when it comes to everything. If a Muslim who came just before the Day of Judgment was to practice the religion exactly how Umar radiallahu anhu practiced it, like Abu Bakr, Uthman, Ali practiced it, that person, alhamdulillah, right? This person is in Jannah. That's what I believe. The Ash'ari and Maturidi, this is something which requires a series for me to do. To explain to people the whole purpose of why Imam Abu al-Hasan Ash'ari and why Abu Mansur Maturidi and other scholars, they had to discuss Aqidah issues and revisit of how we look at them, right? There's a whole kind of like philosophy behind it, which is very, very important. This is the basis of Ilm al-Kalam, you can say. This is the base of Ilm al-Kalam. So, if you imagine like the early Muslims, their language was so pure, their understanding of the language was so pure, anything that they were told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would accept it, right, as it was, because they understood it. As time went by, because non-Arabs were now entering and the Arabic language became watered down, many of the simple things in their society required them to actually refine. And I'll give you an example of this. Like, look in our society today. If someone, for example, says things like, he got a ticket for parking. He got a ticket for parking now. Now, in our days, if you say that to anyone in the UK, I don't know in other countries if you understand that. Maybe in America you might understand it. But if you say he got a ticket for parking, no one would ever come to you and ask you, what does ticket mean? What does he got mean? What does parking mean? No one would ask you that question. Why? Because they understand the English language at the moment so purely that there would be no need for a person to actually elaborate on that. And if someone actually came and said, no, I don't accept this meaning of he got a ticket, and because they're actually questioning the most clear-cut things which everybody knows. Just like if someone came to you and said, what is the sun? And you just point to the sky and say, that thing in the sky over there, right? It's sufficient. You don't need a definition for it. So what basically happened, imagine if 100, 200, 300 years down the line, the English language becomes diluted to such a level that now concepts have changed. The whole idea of parking, and there's no more cars now. And now someone says, in the olden days, they used to say things like, he got a ticket for parking. What does that mean? So let's discuss it. What could it possibly mean? So he got a ticket. Parking, park means like, can also mean a garden. So maybe, some might say that parking was building gardens in certain places, and for that he received a ticket. Some might say, so you see what can happen? It causes lots of confusion when people go into the kind of polemics of things. So Abu al-Hasan Ash'ari, when he came, he saw like, for example, certain things in his community. People were questioning the most basic things regarding Allah, because they brought baggage with them from their previous religions that they were following. And they began to kind of like mix a bit of Christianity and other kind of doctrine into Islamic. So Abu Hasan Ash'ari, he actually, tried to sort this out by discussing. And the Ilm al-Kalam just means discussion, having discussions on this, right? So when we say Allah has a hand in the Quran, Allah says Allah's hand is above their hand. Sahaba knew exactly what that meant as a language. But when later people discussed it, they couldn't appreciate what that sentence meant without associating hand to like a creature's hand. So they began to discuss and say, okay, is it possible to save ourselves from attributing something wrong to Allah? Can we say that hand of Allah means the help of Allah? And they said, yeah, you can, because the Arabic language caters for that. So that's why when it comes to Ash'ari Maturidi, personally I believe that, look, if you believe in the things, belief of salvation is the things that the Sahaba believed. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, if you are in a situation where you have to explain certain things, like nowadays we have lots of new sort of issues arising because of quantum physics, because of physics, because of the concept of time travel, because of the concept of speed of light, because of the concept of other things, evolution, right? LGBT, all these kind of things. There needs to be a discussion now. There needs to be fresh discussions on certain things. to try and find out what is the Muslim's position so that the public can be saved from falling into wrong beliefs. Right? So this is a very important thing. So am I Ash'ari or Maturidi? I've been trained in the Maturidi school, yeah. So instead of saying is this person Ash'ari Maturidi, what they actually mean is what have they been trained in. So I've been trained in the Maturidi school of fiqh, alhamdulillah. Okay, next question. Assalamu alaikum. With regards to wudu, I know that washing means water has to flow over, but how would one get water to flow on the bottom of a foot? Could one pour water on top of foot and then rub? Yes, you can rub water, wet your hand, rub water on the bottom of your foot, that's fine. As long as your foot has become wet, that's the main thing. Okay, last time you did not answer this part of the question, so I'm sending it again. If I had a few questions related to rules around gender interaction. When we're communicating with someone from the opposite gender, can our intentions and desires influence both the manner and content of interaction? For instance, if I'm speaking to someone 15 years younger than me and don't feel any attraction whatsoever towards them, then is it okay to be a bit more relaxed or to talk to them privately? Or is that by default, whenever communicating with someone from the opposite gender, irrespective of our personal feelings, we should always err on the side of caution? Yes, I agree with that. So when it comes to always interacting with other people, especially when you're in private with them, when there's no one else there, always be very, very cautious, very professional in how you say things. Don't become too laxed and too kind of, easy, informal, I would say. The reason is simply because you don't know who could become affected by this. You might feel, I'm strong, I can control myself, but the other person might fall and start having feelings for the other person, and then one thing leads to another, and then it's very difficult for a person to kind of get out of it. And it can lead to breakup of marriages, it can lead to a person losing their job, it can lead to a person's becoming discredited in their community just by accidentally, one accidental meeting resulted in all these other bad things. So this is why if there is no need to have private discussions, I would say, with someone in a private, then there's no need for it. If it's in public and there's other people around, and because of the other public, you're not going to be saying things that you wouldn't say in private, I would say that is always the best thing. Always be cautious in these kind of things, and Allah protects a person if they try to, like you say, they like to have ta'affuf. Yeah, man affa affahullah. Whoever tries to have chastity, whoever tries to control themselves, right, and sets measures for themselves so that they don't fall into this, Allah will support them. So this is why these are the things that the Prophet ﷺ time and time encouraged people, that look, be careful of interactions. If it's a professional interaction anyway, like between teacher and student, or between manager, boss and employee, that's all naturally the context is going to be professional. But we should always be careful in these kinds. If there's no need for a person to have private conversation with someone, then just don't have it. You should be able to tell the person. And now look what's happening now in the world, with what's that thing called, with the female interaction in the corporate world. You probably heard about it a lot, where people actually now are avoiding, and this is non-Muslims, avoiding having contact with women because it might be seen as sexual harassment. And a guy, I remember this was actually one of my students who's a solicitor, who's a judge now, and he was telling me that a guy was actually accused, and he went court because he touched a woman's hair. One of his employees at work, he touched her hair. She filed a complaint against him, and the case was dropped eventually. But the problem was the case resulted in him being accused, and he became, I think he lost his job or something. Lots of things happened to him. So you don't want the accusation. You want to be safe from that. So I would say that's the best thing to do. And if other person should understand that as well, respect that. If there's no need for the interaction, if you're saying if it's an interaction which is not that necessary or something, then I would avoid it. Okay, is it obligatory for women to drape their headscarves over their chests or wear long headscarves if their clothes enough coverage, or does the commandment of the Quran refer to the covering of the chest with? Yeah, so as long as they've covered that area with whatever cloth, whether it's draping the scarf or whether they've got a long neck dress or something, or they've got something else on, that's fine. Yeah, they don't need to necessarily drape the cloth. As long as that part's covered, that's fine. Should non-Muslims make wudu before reading and touching Quran? I mean, there's ikhtilaf, but no, they don't have to. If a person has wudu and then undertakes a long road journey, how long has it been, man? Okay, I need a bit of water. Yeah, let me have a bit of rest. These questions, mashallah. Yeah, loads of them. This is what happens when you only have one question answer live stream. Yeah. So 1 second, guys. I will be back. Just give me 5 minutes, inshallah. And I've got some time, inshallah, so I can answer more questions. So give me 5 minutes here, and I will be back after 5 minutes, inshallah. So I don't think you can pause this. Can you put it on pause? Okay, so Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Back, guys. Alhamdulillah. Alright, so continue on the questions then. So I've got some tea as well, so I've got a bit of energy, some strength. So okay, let's continue on with the questions then. Alright, so if a person has wudu and then undertakes a long road journey and they begin to feel sleepy and drift in and out of a light stage of sleep, does that break wudu? I could still hear everything around me and was conscious of the speed of the car every time. Oh, you're conscious of the speed of the car. MashaAllah, you're good. Unless your car's a bit messed up. And the kind of sounds, there used to be a car I used to have. Trust me, the car would not go over 40 miles per hour. And if it did, Allah, that day was like the third Eid of the year. And it was like, the sound the car would make would tell me how fast it is. I didn't have to look at the speedometer. So I think you got the same car. So he says, every time we approach speed bumps, I don't think I fell asleep. Yeah, then the wudu's fine. So basically, wudu only breaks if you have deep sleep, according to the Hanafis. Right, so anything that signifies that you were not in a deep sleep where you could tell what's happening around you and your buttocks were firm on the seat, then it's fine. Okay, so is it permissible to meet a prospective spouse one-to-one in a public place for the purpose of discussing a sensitive issue that one could not be comfortable mentioning in front of a chaperone? Possibly. I would say possibly. I wouldn't say it's for everyone, but I would say in certain situations it's possible, yeah. As long as it's a public place and they're not going to talk about things which are inappropriate and it's not going to lead to feelings. That's the main kind of thing. Maybe some other relatives could be sitting close by or something, and they can speak privately with one another. That would be possible. But I wouldn't say this for everyone, just so that people don't misuse, right, the idea of interaction. Okay, next question. I once read in a Hanafi book that a person can make a will to make an expiatory payment on his behalf for his missed namaz. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me, but I find this concept very difficult to stomach. Are we allowing the rich to buy their way out of performing namaz? No matter what we say, if you know that this option is there, you will undoubtedly become relaxed. And it just doesn't sound right. And it's just like rich people of their religions paying large sums of money to buy forgiveness for their sins. Or have I understood it wrong? Please explain. I love the comment. Imagine if only Abu Hanifa knew 18 hadiths. Okay. Right. So let me explain this first of all. Basically, according to the scholars, this is unanimous. Everyone agrees because it's in the Quran. Allah says in the Quran that those people who are incapable of fasting can give a payment, right? Which we call fidya. Yeah. So عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةُ طَعَامٍ. They feed one poor person for each fast that they can't fast. This ruling is only for that person who is at a stage in their life where there is no hope of them being able to fast until the end of their life. They're in a chronic illness state, or they're very frail and they will never be able to fast. So Allah says that this person, instead of fasting, can give a fidya. So because of this, the scholars say that if a person passes away, and before they passed away they said they have fasts that they couldn't make up, then they are allowed to make a will and say that my fast that I have missed, can you pay on my behalf for each, for my money, pay. So the scholars say that you're only allowed to do this up to 1/3 of your wealth, right? So you're only allowed to make a will up to 1/3 of your wealth for anyone besides your heirs. So because of this, this has been allowed by the scholars, and this is actually hoped that the fast will be accepted. The Prophet ﷺ, in fact, a person came and said, my parent missed many fasts, can I make fasts up on their behalf? And the Prophet said, yes, you can, right? And the majority of scholars say this was in the form of monetary donations to the poor. So because that's established, right, the other thing, which is salat, there's nothing in the hadith regarding salat. The Hanafis, Imam Muhammad rahimahullah and others, have said that because salat is possibly more important or as important as fasting, then if you have to pay, if you can pay for your fast and hope that on the Day of Judgment Allah will accept this for the fasts that you couldn't do in the world. Say there's a person who didn't fast at all, right? Couldn't bother. That payment would most likely not benefit them. So that payment is only for that person who was unable to make up those fasts, right? They had fasts, they were unable to make up those fasts, and then they pay on them. And so Imam Muhammad says it's hoped that if a person was to do a similar thing for salat, it would be accepted, right? It's just hoped. He says it's hoped. It's not even guaranteed. That's what the Hanafi say. It's mustahab for a person who passes away to make a will for any salats they were unable to pray. And usually when a person's going to die, the fasts that they missed are usually because of some sort of extraordinary sort of events. Maybe a car accident, maybe a person's ill, maybe a person's health has deteriorated, maybe a person's going through problems in life, so those kind of things. So I think you understood that to mean that anyone who misses prayer without any excuse can pay themselves out. No, the scholars don't say this. No one says that, to my knowledge. Hope that answers the question. Right, next. I'm not sure if I understood your position correctly on this, but as far as I remember, you said it's okay to have your pictures hanging on the wall or in frames. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say it's okay to have pictures hanging on the wall. What I said was, regarding pictures, the early scholars, the Hanafis, have said having pictures in a room which are hanging was a sign in them days of respect, honouring the people of the pictures. And this was something that was a precursor to shirk. So that's what they would do in them days. They would have their idols' images on the walls and they would worship them. So this was prohibited. So the Hanafis say that praying inside of a room, they discuss this masala in praying inside of a room where there's images on the walls. What's the ruling of that? So they say that if the image is on the ground, it's fine. So the Hanafis say if the image is on the ground and it's not hanging up as revering them, then praying in that room would be okay. So that's what I said. Is it backbiting to talk about an anonymous account on the internet? They're known by their screen name and not their actual identity. So, okay. Basically, look, backbiting is wrong. Backbiting is wrong because you are saying something about someone who everyone knows who they are, that human individual, that Muslim man or woman. You know who they are. Everyone knows who they are. You're telling people something about that person which they dislike, and it's true, but they dislike it. That's backbiting. So I would say on virtual platform, because people don't know who they are, the individual, they do not know who they are. If they have a name, like for example, some of you guys, I don't know who you are, right, at all. I don't know. No idea if you're a man, if you're a woman, sometimes, who you are. So then if you say something about that individual, because that particular account is not something they're well known for in real life, then that would possibly not come under backbiting. And this is because you're not saying something about someone that could defame them as an individual in their society. Some people might only use social media and no one knows who they are, and but there might be someone who is well known in the community, but that social media nickname or the pseudonym is actually something which they're also known for as well, more than their real name. So in that case, I would say it's best to avoid. It's best to avoid, backbiting someone. Yeah, in that situation. So if it's a situation where a person has a pseudonym, a name on social media, and people don't know them for that, or they know them for that, so they're well-known channel, and that person has that name, then it's best to avoid. Do not backbite. Yeah, because it may fall into backbiting, because you're saying something about someone which that person is well known for. Everyone knows about them. But if it's just something which is like the first type where I said they're not well known for it, people don't know who they are, and it's just their name, and they just come on social media now and again, they're not very well known for that, they don't have like a big following or anything, then I would say then it wouldn't necessarily fall under backbiting, because it'd be more closer towards someone who is known as being an obscure person, obscure human. So obscure humans, you can talk about them. You can say, I saw a guy the other day at the petrol station, and the guy has such a big mouth. So because you guys don't know who he is, it's fine, because next time you see him, you won't have this bad image of him. Okay, right. But ultimately, a person should avoid backbiting. If you think about it deep down in your heart, saying something about someone, irrespective of whether you know them in real life or just on virtual, you shouldn't be saying things about people. All right, next. Assalamu alaikum. I have a couple of questions. You can please answer them in next Q&A. It would be much appreciated. Firstly, can women wear nighties in their home either during the day or night? By nighties, I mean the night dresses for women, either short sleeve or long sleeve, paired with jogging bottoms. The body, I know what nighties are. The body is covered and they are loose fitting. I've heard some conflicting information that women are not allowed to wear such clothes. I was under the impression you could wear these in your own home, just be covered in front of your non-mahram. I was also told I cannot wear half sleeves in front of my children. Is there any truth to this? Can we pray namaz if there is a picture in the room, not necessarily like a photo on the wall, or maybe a picture on a carrier bag? Okay. Do we need to raise our hands in namaz before and after? Alright, so first of all, can a woman, what kind of clothing can a person wear at home? So generally a person can wear at home anything they really want, right? Because the whole idea of having modesty and clothing is to do with the public. In front of the family members, men, as long as they're covered between their navels to their knees, the rest can be exposed, which might not be ideal, might not be, you don't want to see a granddad, in shorts. And for women, it's between just below the breasts, so from the bra line all the way down to the knees. That has to be covered up in front of other family members, and the rest of the body can be exposed according to Hanafis. Nothing wrong with that. So based on that, if a woman was to wear anything which is normally worn at home by women in that society, short sleeves, shorts maybe that goes up to the knees, or the kind of trousers, I don't see an issue with that. That would be fine. Yeah, the problem is, I would say, is many people, because of their culture and customs, they might see that as very bad. So maybe there are some, for example, like Pakistani women. Many Pakistani women might see they always have to wear shalwar kameez all the time. So even when they go to sleep, the night clothes they have to wear has to be a shalwar kameez design. Yeah, and maybe if they're doing some work in the house, they have to wear work clothes, but they have to be shalwar kameez design. So this is just culture. And people frowning upon such practices, is they're not frowning upon it from an Islamic perspective, they're frowning upon it from a cultural perspective. So that's something that's out of our hands. That's obviously people's own impressions. So yeah, you can wear them. If it's something, I would say, in your society that people wear, and it's something that you're not doing, exposing yourself in front of others outside, then it's fine. Can we pray namaz if there's pictures? Yeah, if there's a bag or there's some clothing that's got small little pictures on there, I wouldn't see an issue with that. Do we need to raise our hands in namaz before and after? It's, according to the Shafis, it's preferred. According to Hanafis, it's preferred not to. That's all. It's just something that is it preferred? Hanafis say it's not preferred because, it's just majority of the scholars that Abu Hanifa saw, they never used to do it. Many of the Tabi'een and many of the Sahaba who lived in Kufa, it wasn't their practice to raise their hands before and after ruku. So Imam Hanifa says if many of the Sahaba didn't do it, then Sahaba would obviously not leave something that was important. Salam, if you just started recently praying your namaz, what do you do about all the years you didn't pray? I've been advised to pray one qaza with every namaz I read instead of reading the nafal. Is that correct? You can do that. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. For with every salat, just pray a qaza as well. Slowly make it up, and inshallah, if that's your intention, Allah will accept that, inshallah. Sam, can you recommend an institution in London for someone who wants to start learning about Islam and gaining knowledge? It's very difficult to decide which course or place to go to. As there are different madhabs, I fear that they teach different things, according to their madhab. So confused how I should go about this. I really want to go and learn about Islam and correct my Quran, especially now I have free time to do so. What I would suggest is, first and foremostly, is learn how tajweed. If your tajweed is not good, learn tajweed first. So learn how to recite the Quran properly. That's the first and foremost thing you should do. The second thing that you should do is you should learn the basics of Islam, the fundamentals of Islam, basics of Islam. Learn that, right? Like wudu, salat, whichever madhab you follow, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, just as long as you're learning the basics of Islam. These are what we call the daruriyat of deen. These are the things which are essential for every Muslim. They must learn. In London, I'm not too sure of places, but the places that I do know, for example, like Ibrahim College, I've been there. I've seen the place. I'm very happy with them. So Ibrahim College, which is just next door to ELM Mosque, down the road, and White Thread Press. Yeah, so White Thread Institute, which is run by Mufti Abdul Rahman Mangera. I've been there as well, and I've spoken to Mufti Abdul Rahman Mangera, and very happy with that place as well. So these are the two places I can say to you, they are places that you can study if you're close to there. Otherwise, what I would suggest is get in contact with your local masjid. If you have a local masjid, ask them. I don't know, I mean, maybe someone on here could put it up of what places there are in London that teach. Right, so I know these two places offer good courses. Yeah, very high quality courses as well. And I think As-Salam Institute as well. I don't exactly know where As-Salam Institute is. It's somewhere in London, right? But I've spoken to some of the teachers there, and I feel comfortable with them as well. Yeah, As-Salam Institute. Okay, last question. Last question of Curious Cat, and then answering your questions. Why is it not allowed for a woman on menses to go to the masjid around Eid time? I came across a hadith in which the Prophet encouraged the women to go for Eid prayer, and those menses except were not allowed to go to the musalla. Yeah, so masjid is different from musalla. Musalla basically means a field, like a ground, like a pitch. And masjid is different. Masjid is a sanctified place. So in a masjid, it has to be kept pure. Right, so this is why they're not allowed to enter. A person, a man who is in an impure state, a woman is in an impure state, cannot enter the masjid. That's all. You don't have to go to the masjid, right? By going into the masjid, you're not getting extra reward for entering a masjid. No one says if you enter a masjid, you get extra reward for it. And in fact, women are encouraged to pray at home. So this is why there isn't really a big issue in a woman who's in menstruation not going to the masjid. And her menstruation is only going to last for a few days. Once it's over, then she can go to the masjid. So the Eid prayer was not in a masjid. It never used to take place in a mosque in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It would take place in a place which is outside, field. Right, so the Prophet ﷺ would encourage even menstruating women to come attend there as well. Okay, so I hope that answers all the questions on that. Right, some of you guys have sent me some of the questions from last time. So some of you guys have taken screenshots of these questions. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair for you guys. And MashaAllah, you guys are very patient people, alhamdulillah. Yeah. On a nice Sunday, sunny, well, today's been all strange weather, but on a nice sunny sort of day, you guys have what do you call it? Sat down here watching me answer questions. So alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair for all of your patience. Let me just try to find those questions. It was on my Twitter, someone sent me. Okay, let me just try to open Twitter. Okay, so Allah. Right. So Najuku Stella said, if you listen to music, is it haram? Or if we take a wedding uh, and put on, is it haram? I don't understand the question. Okay, I think I'll answer the music question. Have you come across the hadith about jinns being released at the end of time and teaching people? Can you comment? I've never heard that. Is dawah obligatory for all Muslims? And if so, what kind? No, it's not obligatory for non-Muslims. My parents divorced when I was quite young. I've never been close to my father. Is keeping in touch with him via phone sufficient, or am I required to visit him? I mean, whatever is normal, the normal custom of meeting your parents, I would say that's sufficient. So if it's through phone or something, as long as you have some sort of connection with them, alhamdulillah. Are we allowed to dry clean clothes that have a label saying they can only be dry cleaned? I think I answered that one. Next, what is the status of Salat Tasbih? Is it an authentic prayer of the Prophet ﷺ? According to many of the scholars, yes. Yeah, majority of scholars, they say yes. There's actually many books that are written on it. So Salat Tasbih has been established. It's the hadith, Imam Ibn Hajar considers it as being Hasan, I think. Yeah, Hasan. So it's been acceptable. Is Salat al-Awabin authentic? Yes, Salat al-Awabin is authenticated. The only difference is what is Awabin. So some of the scholars say Awabin refers to Duha, the morning Salat. And others say no, it also refers to the Salat after Maghrib. So it's like acceptable. It's not like at the highest level, Sahih, highest level. So what I would suggest is you need to study Usul Hadith to understand this. So it's acceptable. So when you say authenticated, what I understand from that is, are you asking, can a Muslim do it? Will a Muslim be considered to be allowed to do it? Yes, he can. Najuka says, okay, my name is Stella. Okay, alhamdulillah. Abdul Samad says, Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum assalam. Can you please continue classes? All right. Next one. This morning I was upset and I really don't want to be angry, but certain situation got me in that state and I don't want to be that person I used to be. What could I do so I don't feel so bad? I want to be that person. Well, I mean, these kind of things, issues. I mean, I personally get angry. Yeah, sometimes I get angry and I can tell you what I do, but I don't really have I haven't really done a course or haven't done some sort of specialization in anger management or psychology, right? So counseling, and these are not my forte. So I'm not good at counseling people. When people ask me for advice, I'm the worst person to ask for advice. Unless you're asking me advice about studies, right? What to study, how to study this and that. I can give you, alhamdulillah, a lot of personal experience on that. But when people ask scholars about counseling and advice and nasiha about their situations and things like that, scholars are not necessarily good at that, because that requires training in a special field. You need to understand people's temperaments, you need to understand anger management, you need to understand other problems, and then you're able to give the correct advice. And sometimes a scholar just feels embarrassed when someone asks him, I need advice on this situation, give me some advice. A scholar, he probably thinks, if I let this person go, this person's going to feel bad about me. So they'll just say, things to him. And, that's why I just want to be truthful, no point lying. So I'll just say, look, I'm not good at answering questions with regards to how to control your anger. What I would say, maybe things that I do, is if you ever get in a situation of anger, just move away from it. If you're arguing with someone, just calm down, relax, step away, go outside, go for a walk, put the phone down or something. Say to that person, look, please, is it okay if we have a conversation later on? Yeah, I just feel angry, and just put it down. And khalas, just walk away. And see, the thing is, anger is something which differs from person to person. There's so many things that can trigger off anger in me that might not trigger off in you, and vice versa. Okay, today is much easier to give charity. People can do donations, and it can be lazy and thought, do people get less reward? How do we? I mean, a reward is all in the eyes of Allah. As long as you give it, inshallah, Allah will give you a reward. Yeah, I mean, we don't look at situations. Obviously, the best way to give, the more impact reward has on you, is when you give it to a poor person themselves in their hands. That's the most impact it'll have on you. Not to say that's the most rewarding. Reward and all of that, that's in the hands of Allah. Okay, so can you draw pictures of people without the eyes? I mean, is that a question, can I do it? Or is it a question, is it Islamically, is it permissible? I mean, there's ikhtilaf in this issue. Ikhtilaf. Hanafis generally say no, because the features of the face are what make a person human. Others have ikhtilaf on that. And it depends exactly what you're drawing as well. If it's something which is fictional, if it's something which is real. Okay, wa alaikum assalam. I'm writing my will and wanted to know what I'm obligated to write down for my husband. In comparison to my mother, as I don't want to make errors. Okay, so what you need to do in a will, if you want to write an Islamic will, all you have to do is work out. You need to work out how much goes to each person. So when you write a will, first of all, in the will, write this. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I so and so, I'm writing this will so that my assets are distributed in the following way. Number one is my funeral is paid from my assets. Number two, if there's anyone who claims debts, or I have debts to pay, then money should be taken from my assets. Number three, anyone that I have made a voluntary wasiyah or voluntary bequest for, I wish from 1/3 of my wealth for them to be given this much. And finally, number four is the rest I wish to be distributed according to the Islamic way. That's it. That's how you make a will. And if you do that, khalas, will's done. Your will is willed. As a Hanafi, I prayed witr behind a something Shafi Imam in Ramadan. Will my witr be valid because do 2 and 1? Yes, inshallah, it'll be valid. I mean, the thing with witr you have to remember is it's an ikhtilafi thing, and ikhtilaf, when there's ikhtilaf in something, it reduces the strictness of the ruling. So if you prayed behind a Shafi, alhamdulillah, khalas, your salat's done. If Imam Shafi was alive, would you pray behind him? I would. Yeah, so, fine. Okay, gluttony is a sin in Islam, but living in the West is hard to avoid not snacking. We eat a lot of food. How do you reconcile the sunnah of eating? Again, I'm not really good at answering this kind of question because this requires someone who's good at a dietitian. Right, so you'd have to ask a dietitian. See, the thing about the Sahaba's days was the food that they ate was very wholesome. You don't get an obese person in them days. You can't. I don't think you can get an obese person in this because, number one, it was relatively, a poor society. And number two is because the food was so wholesome that when they used to eat it, it'd get digested. And it wouldn't have like so much, what do you call it? So much, the kind of cholesterol sort of type foods, fat, etc. Yeah, the unhealthy type fat. So this kind of question, banana, I would say you need to ask a dietitian. Yeah, and to say what is the sunnah eating, again, there is no such thing as sunnah eating. This is a misconception that people have. The Prophet, yes, there was an Arab eating. If you wanted the sunnah eating, was fast on Mondays and Thursdays. That is the sunnah diet, right? Fast on Mondays and Thursdays, alhamdulillah. 3 days every month, 13th, 14th, 15th of the lunar month. Fast Ramadan, fast most of Shawwal. Those are the kind of diet tips you can say are the most sunnah kind of things. Okay, is it more important to give charity to third world countries living in the West, or should we prioritize charity in local area? I would say both. Wa alaikum assalam. If one put the khufs on and then say starts to walk and the regular sock worn something uncomfortable and takes the khuf off to straighten. Yeah, if you take off the khuf, khalas, you've got to take it both off. Even if you've got normal socks underneath, you've got to take them off. Okay, I think I've answered all the questions. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so all of those questions are done, guys. Now I'm going to answer all your questions on the side now. Today's a very long session. Yeah, I've given up a lot of my editing time for you guys, alhamdulillah. So hopefully I'll try to answer all of them. And I've also got a nikah to go to as well. So I've got to go to a wedding in a bit to do a nikah for someone, for one of my students getting married. So I've got to go there in a bit. So I was trying to make a video for my channel, but I don't think that'll be done now. Okay, so some questions. So Hina Mendi, I hope I've answered your question. Aisha Hunjura, wa alaikum assalam. Ibrahim Mughal, wa alaikum assalam. Wasik, wa alaikum assalam. Ibrahim Mughal. Do you think gender roles are important in marriage, as some men are very feminine and some women are very masculine? It all depends upon society, I would say. Yeah, it all depends on society. There's, societies are very different. Society like, people living in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, very different from people living in Afghanistan, North Pakistan, very different from people living in Africa, from Europe, right? The idea of these, I think, is very different. Okay, I am Aisha, and I was Hindu and now converted to Muslim. Alhamdulillah, I was married for 13 years earlier in Hindu family, and I was having 2 kids in India. I miss my kid. May Allah reunite you with them and give them hidayah. How do you make sajda if you made a mistake in salah? So the way you do sajda sahu is when you say at-tahiyatu lillahi wa salawatu wa tayyibat, and you finish it, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. You give one salam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You do sajda, Allahu Akbar, and then you get up and you do sajda again, Allahu Akbar, and then you get up and then you read at-tahiyatu lillahi wa salawatu wa tayyibat. You do the whole thing, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, the whole thing, dua, and then assalamu alaikum, khalas. That's how you do sajda sahu. Yeah. Okay. Next, is there more reward in praying in Tahmid? What's this? You deleted 2 messages. Astaghfirullah, bro. Is there more reward in praying in a masjid which is a little further from home than your local? Is the reward connected with effort? Not necessarily. No. The scholars, they say that the reward is with the masjid. Yeah. If you have to go to a faraway masjid because there is no local masjid, then there is more reward, because the reward is associated with you having to make the effort, not because you by choice make the effort. One is, for example, you by choice make the effort, right? So you got one mosque next to your house, and you got one mosque which is half an hour drive, right? So you go to the one next to your house. You don't need to go to the one all the half an hour drive. So I would say there's no extra reward in that. If you can't keep your wudu because of gas and lots of wind, and you have this problem constantly, I've heard you make wudu for each namaz and carry on praying whether you pass wind or not. Yes, this is true. If a woman wants to pray namaz in the mosque and her husband restricts her, saying women have to pray at home, what's your stance on that? I mean, yeah, that's fine. As many of the scholars say that. Yeah, that the husband has the right to do that. And other scholars are on the opinion that no, the woman should be allowed to go to the mosque. So there's 2 positions there. Okay, so I had a discussion with my father-in-law, and it was about immorality being spread because of female singers. He said that if I was a ruler, I would execute them. My question is that even possible? Astaghfirullah. I don't know. I mean, I think that's a bit harsh when execute singers. First of all, if you're the ruler, you're not going to have these. You're going to have laws in place. If you're a ruler and you don't like female singers, you'd have laws in place to stop this. But executing them, that I think is a bit too harsh. Yeah. Can a ruler put someone to death to stop spreading immorality? It depends. It depends exactly what it is. But generally, no. Yeah, generally, death is like a very severe thing. Death is, right? You can't just like kill someone just like that. Assalamu alaikum. Are tools for a person's trade, i.e. electrician, mechanic, etc. Also, what about weapons a person owns? Are they included in part of zakat? No. Can you recommend an easy English translation book? Yes. A book called Gracious Quran. The Gracious Quran by Zaki Ahmed. Wa alaikum assalam, Kila Musa. Keep the crash courses coming. They are very beneficial. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. If zina is captured by video camera, are witnesses still required? Yes. Any good books for hadith with commentaries in English? Hadith, I'm not sure, I don't think so. I'm not sure. Maybe there is. There was one recently written by a scholar in Canada on Bukhari. I forgot his name now. Yeah, so if you look up Sahih Bukhari, a scholar has written an English. It's a good English commentary, and easy for general public to understand. And he started it, and he's got many more volumes to write, but it's a good one. So find that out. A scholar in Canada. I can't remember his name now. It's just skipped my mind. Maybe if someone knows, they can put it up. Sheikh, will it be possible if you can do a series going through Tuhfatul Atfal? See, the thing is, I'm not really a qari. Yeah. So, these kind of tajweed and these kind of things, I'm not really kind of comfortable in. I'm not an expert in tajweed. I can teach tajweed, alhamdulillah, no problem. But in tajweed and in these kind of things, I wouldn't really be too comfortable in that. I would say you study for the Tuhfat al-Atfal from someone who is an expert. Yeah, someone who's an expert, I would say. Wa alaikum assalam. Is there a reason, wisdom, why 4 people are needed to be witnesses against a zani, and why 4 oaths are taken for li'an. Why the number 4 and not the number 3? We don't know. Allah knows best. It's like, why 5 salats in the day? I don't know the reason for that. Okay, where do we ask the questions? You can ask the questions in Curious Cat. So it's curiouscat.me/liaqatzaman82. Yeah, so if you Google that, or you can put it in your URL. So is this live? Yes, it's live. Or he already has questions. Yeah, I already had questions and it's live as well, both. If a person has a relationship with a woman and gets pregnant without nikah, and they do nikah before baby birth, is the baby harami? No, then it will be attributed to the husband. Assalamu alaikum. I finished Qaida today in less than 1 month. MashaAllah, Allahu Akbar. Congratulations. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Jazakallah for this tasawwuf lesson. Allahu Akbar. Wa alaikum assalam. Having learnt little about hadith, etc., I thought the science was simple and straightforward, but now I've heard of multiple options of the authenticity of hadith. Yes, definitely. As in hadith in Bukhari apparently being weak, many hadith in other books apparently being fabricated, and so on. How do we navigate this? You need to study in depth. Hadith in Bukhari being weak, as in, that's a big claim that is, but you need to study hadith, usul hadith, at a very good level. The problem is, the science of hadith has never ever been for public consumption. That's the reality. It's like medicine, the science of medicine. It's never for public consumption. Public are not supposed to be reading books on medicine. It's supposed to only be done by students of medicine and doctors. So if it gets into the hands of the public becomes very confused in what they write in their books. Same thing with hadith science. The hadith books in the past were never supposed to be public consumption. It was only designed for, these sciences were designed for people who were serious about studies and studied it. So having public consumption now where everyone gets access to all these books of hadith, it just causes so much confusion. It's just phenomenal. So if you're really interested and you have lots of questions about it, I would say get hold of someone and learn usul hadith, like in depth. And when I mean in depth, you're probably going to have to spend 3 or 4 years studying it properly. Does a woman have to cover her feet while praying? According to Hanafis, no. According to Shafis, yeah. Same here, alhamdulillah, subhanallah, jazakallah khair, Valerie. Ustad, has the Prophet ﷺ travel time? I don't know, because I don't know what the definition of time travel is. Yeah, what is the exact definition of time travel? May Allah bless you, anonymous, jazakallah, ameen, ameen, thank you very much. You have to make a new chat. Oh, it's the same chat. Shaykhana, I read and I read and understand Arabic, alhamdulillah, but struggle to understand Arab ulama in their durus. Any tips? Yeah, it's just going to take time. Try to stick to those Arab scholars who speak Fusha. Right, there's many out there who will mix Fusha with their Amiya, local Arabic, but try to stick to scholars who speak Fusha, and that way you can slowly build your listening skills, strengthen them. And then after that, you can listen to any. Alhamdulillah, I can listen to most Arab scholars and I can understand them. Alhamdulillah. There's very few who I'll struggle, and that's because they usually speak their local dialect in some certain things they say, and I find it difficult. But generally, alhamdulillah, I can listen to 95% of them without problem. So yeah, it's just time. Just carry on. If you listen, I would say regularly for six months, you shouldn't have a problem. In Asian families, members read Quran on behalf of the dead. Is this sunnah thing to do? And does this reward? Yes. According to the Hanafis, according to the Hanbalis, it's permissible. Isal thawab. According to Malikis and Shafis, no, it's not. Anka, is that how I say it? Salam alaikum salam. My question is, how can a divorced woman with a child move on in terms of marriage? I find when men know we are divorced, they look down upon us. How can we get to know someone in a halal manner? Very good question. It's a very, very tough one. And again, I'm not really kind of good at answering these kind of questions. I'm not an expert in marriage. I'm not an expert in, these marriage counseling. So I don't really know how. I mean, the thing is, I personally think it's a lot to do with mindset. For example, like there's a lot of men out there that want to get married, but they want to get married to a woman that's not been married before. That's like a mindset for many men, which it's fair play. It's their right. So we can't really kind of tell men they should get married to women that have been married before, and that it's wrong to marry a woman that hasn't been married before. So that's their choice. That is. Many cultures are not like that. Like if you look in the Sahaba's culture, the Arabs at that time didn't have an issue with marrying a woman who was married before. You had some Sahaba who were married to a woman who was married previously 5 or 6 times previously. It wasn't like a strange thing. So I think it's all to do with culture. The second problem you have is obviously you don't have the issue of polygamy as well. So a man marrying more than one woman isn't something common. And also lots of women, and it is their right, lots of women do not want their husband to marry another woman, and it's fully their right. If they're not happy with their husband marrying another woman, that's totally that's their right, that is. So that's the problems you have over here. So you have on one side the man, he wants to marry a woman who hasn't married before. On the other side you have married men whose wives don't want them to marry another woman. And the third is obviously a man having to support a child which is not his, which is a difficult thing for many men as well, right? Because providing for them as well, they've got to give time, etc. And so these are kind of problems, I think. So I just thought I'd just mention those kind of things top of my head, but we need to have obviously answers for this, and we need people out there that can discuss this. I'm not an expert in this, so I apologize. I wouldn't be able to really give a good answer on that. Can you give a few tips for keeping khushu consistent for someone who understands Arabic? Yeah, whatever you're going to read in your salat, before salat, go over it. And in your salat, try to, recite it with understanding. What about if you're in your menses and there is a death in your family? Are you not allowed to go to the janazah? You can't enter the masjid, that's it. So you can go to a janazah, but you can't enter inside the masjid. Sheikh, I've heard people that I have recited Wala Zalin Fatiha their whole lives and can't do otherwise without difficulty. Yes, it can be excused. The fuqaha have mentioned it. Dad is actually the most lenient letter in the whole Arabic language. There's many ways this can be recited. Yeah, so especially if it's something of the Ajam, non-Arabs, so it's fine. People should try to obviously correct themselves if they can. If they can't, then it's acceptable. What do you think of Khan Niazi's translation of Al-Hidayah? I've read a bit of it. I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's good. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, and Jazakallah khair to you. Ameen. Any advice on making notes and charts when studying fiqh chapters? It all depends upon how you learn. I am not really when it comes to fiqh, I don't really believe fiqh is about charts. I believe fiqh is about understanding. So I personally believe when I teach my students fiqh, I draw everything on the board. I annotate a lot, so I do lots of illustrations for explaining a masala. All my students know me for this. But the thing is I want the students to understand and ask. So fiqh should be that, should all be about thinking. So once you get your student thinking, even if it's one masala, they think. I think that is better than them learning 100 masalas. But yeah, if you like charts, go for it. Make charts. If one feels he's very confident in what he's learning and can learn much more, but the teacher doesn't teach more or even detailed, and thus the student's thirst isn't quenched, what do you suggest? And that happens. That is a very common thing. Sahaba complained about this as well. Tabi'in complained about this as well. They said some Sahaba, we go to them and we can only take a bit of knowledge from them. He goes, but some Sahaba, we go to them and if the whole world was to come and study by them, he goes, it would quench all their thirst. Yeah, so different teachers have different mizaj, like different temperaments. There might be some students who can't learn from me, who find it difficult to learn from me, and I accept that. And there might be that same student studies the same thing from a different teacher, and alhamdulillah can benefit and learn so much. So I think that's basically something, and we shouldn't be shy if we can't teach properly. Then we shouldn't feel that this is something which is disrespectful towards us. If someone comes to me and says, look, I can't study from you, I find it difficult to study from you, alhamdulillah, yeah, like I say, plenty of fish in the sea, plenty of teachers out there you can learn from. And I don't take it in a negative way at all. And alhamdulillah, I take that as a kind of a learning curve for myself. That, you know what, I need to improve my way. I need to learn a better strategy in teaching this topic. So I always try to improve my method of learning. So yeah, if you feel there's a teacher and you want to learn more, then I suggest you tell your teacher this. Maybe your teacher will boost up the lessons, or just find another teacher. When should we write our wills? Anytime. If you missed all the prostrations and are supposed to be done during the points of reading Quran, how do you make up for these? You can make them later on. You can make them all up later on. It doesn't matter. Afwan Sheikh, is the Ibrahimiyya and Dua recited before Sajda Sahu? No. Yeah, no. So you finish at At-Tahiyyat just before Allahumma Salli. You do Salam, you do 2 sajdas, you sit up, you read At-Tahiyyat again, you read Allahumma Salli again, and then Dua, and then Salam. That's according to the Hanafi's method, that is. I'm telling you the Hanafi's method. Jazakallah khair for your time and answering all our questions. This was very helpful. Very glad I found your channel. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair hina. May Allah keep you happy as well. Jazakallah khair Fuad. What books does one begin with in tafsir, and what does he study after that? And who are the great mufassirin of our time? Allahu Akbar. This is a question which requires a long time. Yeah, and I think it might be a good to do a crash course on tafsir. Crash course on tafsir in 10 or 15 minutes, just explaining, A to Z about tafsirs. I think that might be a good idea to do. Otherwise, I think the problem is people see tafsir as a science like Nahu. Yeah, which I think is not a science like Nahu. Tafsir is a science, but it's not like Nahu where you have to study certain books to get to a certain level. Tafsir actually is something else. So I think I might have to do a series on that. Alhamdulillah, Ibrahim Mughal, look at that. This was taqdeer. Either it means you're special, which probably is, or it means I'm special, or it means we're both special, or it means someone else is special. 4 options. Okay, fun. Wa alaikum assalam. Can you please give me an advice on how to memorize du'as and surahs faster? Just keep going over them, keep reading them, keep reading them, keep reading them. That's the best thing to do. And try to read them in the morning, early in the morning, Fajr time. Best way to memorize. Wa alaikum assalam. Islam rewards. Banana, in the future we might have meat produced in labs, non-slaughtered. Would this be considered halal? I don't know. When that happens, then inshallah we'll have to investigate. Can you eat stunned meat, halal food like Subways and Nando's? If the stunning is not something that renders the animal dead, then there's scope for it. Yeah, there's scope. If it doesn't render the animal dead. Any plans on doing videos on Mantiq? Yes, I'm actually doing videos on Mantiq for my patrons. So my patrons out there, they get my Mantiq videos. But inshallah, in the future, maybe next year sometimes, I might release some of those videos to the public. But at the moment, it's only for patrons. Were there any female mufassirin or translated Quran? Yes, there are, and there's even some today as well. I am studying counseling myself, and yeah, it's something which is complicated, and I understand your frustration with psychological questions. Yeah, definitely. It's people, they see a scholar and immediately think he knows the answer to anything. Which is not fair, that is, because the scholar has only trained in a certain field, and he should be seen as that. So if you take a doctor and you think a doctor can, fix someone's car, it's unfair. Likewise, if there's a scholar, we need to treat him as a scholar in his field. Do you eat halal Nando's and Subways? I have not eaten halal Nando's and Subways in England, but I've eaten in Pakistan. So I don't know. In Pakistan, I used to eat Nando's regularly and Subways on regularly. But in UK, I don't think I've ever eaten it. What books do you use for teaching Mantiq? I use a book, I can't remember the name now, it's something Mantiq. Yeah, it's by a guy called Shirazi or something. Yeah, I'll have to look it up. I can't remember the exact name of it. Okay, so next, what does Allah use gharib words in the Quran? Why does Allah doesn't use gharib words in the Quran? We see them as gharib. Yeah, so Allah doesn't use gharib words. we see them as gharib, so they're gharib to us. Like, if someone knows that word very well, it's not gharib to him. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to finish now. So, last question. That is a tough question that I know, but I wonder if you would know what is the proof of the existence of God. You're the proof of existence of God. Yeah, you're the proof. By you asking whether God exists is a proof that God exists. Okay, Mujiz fil Mantiq. Jazakallah khair, Sister Amina. MashaAllah, that's the one. Mujiz fil Mantiq. So if you Google Mujiz fil Mantiq, very small book. Okay, hi, hello. How does one decide between two conflicting fatwa? One doesn't decide between conflicting fatwa. That's the thing. Decision making requires prior knowledge. So you need to have prior education to be able to decide between two fatwas. Yeah, if that's what you're asking. Wa alaikum assalam, Fahim. Is it permissible for someone to work in investment banking in an IT role? Possibly. It depends exactly. If you give the description of the exact job, then the thing to remember is that a lot of these jobs, generic jobs, any sort of generic sort of job in any sort of place, like electrician, cleaner, and maybe some sort of IT and security and all these kind of things. These are generic jobs and they're considered to be okay by Imam Hanifa. Okay, you finished your qaida today. MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair, Alhamdulillah. Okay, Fahim, great talk yesterday. MashaAllah, Allah, you were there, yeah? Oh yeah, you were there, ne? Yeah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. You like the mentioning about the AI. See that? I brought AI into it, my talk. Artificial intelligence. How some Sahaba didn't understand words which were not that common. Yeah, I mean, it all depends upon the Sahabi. Yeah, that's fine. Because remember, the Arabic language itself is neutral. How much of the Arabic language we know, that's all dependent upon how exposed we are to the Arabic language. So it's possible that there could be words in the Quran that were gharib to Umar radiallahu anhu. It's fine. But that were well known to another tribe of Arabs. Nothing wrong with that. So when we say a word is gharib in the Quran, that's fine. Because that's all just to do with humans are not going to know. For us, for example, like a person who's learning Quran, there's going to be more words in the Quran that are gharib than average other person. Okay, so I don't know if I listened to the answer, if there was any famous female Quran translator. Yes, there are. There's one called, I think her name is Aisha binti Abdurrahman. Aisha binti Abdurrahman. She's a well-known one in today's time. Yeah. If you read Tabaqat al-Mufassirin, the typology of the Mufassirs, there's many of them are mentioned. Aisha radiallahu anha herself, she was a famous Mufassir of the Quran. And then in history you have lots of other ones that are mentioned. Okay, start teaching Qiraat al-Rashida or Qiraat al-Rashida, please. I guarantee, I bet you're studying it in madrasa, yeah? I need help. So I think a lot of people, the thing with these books is, you have to understand, are you studying these books, Qiraat al-Rashida, because you're studying in madrasa, and so you need to kind of go through them? Or are you studying it for another purpose? I personally only teach this kind of book if there's a purpose, is like a technique in teaching it. And that technique requires students to do lots of extra work. So the extra work in these would be things like writing sentences, using the dictionary, all the preparation, all of this are come hand in hand in studying Qiraat al-Rashida. Qiraat al-Rashida is not like a book where the teacher just translates and says to you, this means that, kind of means this, and because then it's futile. You can get loads of translations of books like that. The first day after your death, what happens to you? I don't know what happens after the first day of death. Fun. Inshallah, when I die, actually no, that won't work, because I won't be able to tell you guys. But when you all die, you'll know. Reply the two fatwas. For example, some scholars say machine slaughtered chicken is halal. Others say don't. Is there such a thing as safer fatwa? Stronger? Yeah, it's for safer. If you want to, I would say stick to a scholar you're happy with. If you take the fatwa of a scholar and that scholar you believe he is pious and you believe he's got knowledge, right? And you're saying, I'm happy with the answer he's given. Follow that. Yeah, just do that. So there's no such thing as a stronger fatwa. You might think it's stronger, but technically, academically, it might not be stronger. Okay, subhanallah, I keep asking questions. Forgive us, Sheikh. May Allah reward you. No problem. Ameen, Jazakallah khair. Fahim, shout out to AI, but nothing compared to humans. Allah. Okay. Please, can you do these lives longer because you make my day happier? Allah, thank you very much. I wish I could, but I have to leave, unfortunately. Is the beard compulsory? Okay, I have to go now. So, Jazakallah khair. Am I a scholar? No, I'm not a scholar. I'm a student of knowledge. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, I'm a student of knowledge. I'm still learning. So, Jazakallah khair, guys. Thank you very much for your questions. And I will, inshallah, hopefully see you guys next time. I think I don't have any more backlog of questions anymore now. So, hopefully, that's it. So, thank you very much for everyone for watching. And check out my YouTube videos if you haven't. Share my YouTube videos with everyone. And give me suggestions of what other videos I can make. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.